Hello guys, welcome to my new video, and it's been ages since I've done a proper video, guys. I've been so busy. I hope you all had happy holidays. I've been pushing rank 1 Mythic Plus Resto Shaman for the last 2 weeks or so I'm so happy to be back and do a proper video on Resto Shaman 9.2 tier sets. They've been reworked like weeks ago and I planned to do a video about it, but I've been so busy. There's been some really interesting buffs towards Venthyr specific legendary towards Resto Shamans, which is going to resemble Mystery or Monk Fallen Order type of interaction, and you'll know what I mean when you see the video. So guys, let's go and have a look at Resto Shaman tier set. Let's go have a look at how Resto Shamans are looking for 9.2. Disclaimer before any of this. There is going to be changes happening in the future because the way that the tier set works right now is relatively weird. I don't want to say weird, but there's definitely some interesting interaction that could possibly change in the future. So if you're watching the video in the next couple of weeks, there is a high likelihood something has changed. Let's go and get started. So first of all, this is my Resto Shaman on PTR, and it's been very difficult to test right now because there's not a lot of people here, and you'll notice that 4 set basically rely on having chain heal targets, and you won't see the true potential until I'm going to be looking and testing raid situations. So the new tier set, what is happening, what is interesting, what is going on? The new tier set is very different. Well, to some extent it's different from what it used to be. Again, do you remember the Spirit Link reduction? That was a big yikes. But your critical, that's the 2 set. Your critical healing increases the critical chance of your next chain heal by 2%, stacking up to 50 times. So basically any crits that you do, and one of the easiest ways to do it is just get healing rain and get people to step into it, and any crit is going to add a stack. All of your healing that's going to be critical is going to add a stack towards your next chain heal. And at 50 stacks, you're gonna technically have a 100% chance crit. You don't even need 50 stacks because you also have base crit and, you know, crit from stats and items. But generally speaking, this means that stacking up crit is going to be, or getting critical strike from your heals is really going to be important because the 4 set bonus is really, they work together. And that's the important part. So the 4 set bonus, your chain heal critical hits. So the more crits you get from other heals, your next chain heals are going to have a higher chance of critting. Those chain heal crits reduce the remaining cooldown of one of your totems by 2 seconds. And we need to spend some time on this. But before we're going to do that, I need to mention that, again, the second part of the 4 set, your healing stream totem, which is going to be your Cloudburst totem if you do spec into it. Your Cloudburst totem, which you most likely will be for every content in Mythic Plus and raids. Your Healing Tide totem, your Mana Tide totem, and Spirit Link totem now also cast Chain Heal when you drop them. If you're using spells, you're getting critical strikes. Again, we're just using one dummy. It's not a good way to represent. In raid situations, if people are stacking, you're gonna generate crits a lot faster. But if you drop like a Cloudburst totem, Spirit Link totem, Mana Tide totem, and Healing Tide totem and things like that, you will notice that there's going to be a Chain Heal. That Chain Heal is also going to eat up the stacks from the increased crit that you got from the 2 set bonus. So that's the first interesting interaction. Now, what I need to explain to people is that something that confused me as well. Your chain heal critical hits reduce the remaining cooldown of one of your totems by 2 seconds. This is really misleading to some extent. It basically reduces the cooldown of any totem, and that is including Vesper totem. I put a Vesper totem. I use up my 3 charges. Let's say we're going to use up all of our charges right now. I need to use 3 DPS abilities. Very, very good. 3 DPS abilities. My Vesper totem goes on cooldown. Now it has 50-second cooldown reduction. And now I'm using my chain heal. And you can see that my chain heal crits are going to reduce the cooldown of Vesper totem. If I put down, for example, Earthen Wall totem, it's also going to reduce the cooldown. But this is where the interesting part happens, and this is going to require a lot of testing. So the cooldown reduction from your chain heal critical strikes is going to be interacting very weirdly with the cooldown reduction on your totems that are on cooldown at that given point. So, for example, you get 50 stacks from your tier 2 set bonus. That means your next chain heal is going to 100% critical strike. You can get, like, let's say upwards of 4 characters. In my case, I'm only getting 2 characters that have the chain heal crit on them, which means that I'm going to get 4-second cooldown reduction. Now, in the example here right now, I have Vesper totem on cooldown and I have Earthen Wall totem on cooldown. And I'm using my 50 stack chain heal on myself and an NPC, which is going to give me 4-second cooldown reduction. And in the case here right now, 2 seconds went into Vesper totem and 2-second cooldown reduction went into Earthen Wall totem. Okay, that's fine. Now on the second test trial, I used the same kind of mentality, but all of the 4 seconds of the cooldown reduction from the chain heal critical strikes went into Earthen Wall Totem. Nothing went into Vesper Totem. I've also tested out with more people where I was able to get 4 or all of the bounces of Chain Heal to crit. So therefore I was gonna get 8-second cooldown reduction. 6 seconds of that cooldown reduction went into one totem, 2 seconds went to another totem. How does this work exactly? What is the priority system? Is it completely random? I don't know. At this given point, it seems like it's random, but I'm not. Again, this is field crafting. This tier set is going to reduce the cooldown of your totems, of all of your totems. Now keep in mind, Earthen or Earth Elemental does not have its cooldown reduced by Chain Heal critical strikes. I don't know if it's counted as a totem, if it's counted as something else by the tier set. I don't know if it's a bug, but I really was kind of trying out to see if the Deep Tremor totem legendary would be interesting with this Chain Heal spam, but at the moment there's no interaction with it. So that's something to keep in mind. Earthen Elemental does not work with the Chain Heal reduction from the 4-set bonus. Everything else seems to work. Now I've tested things like, you'll notice, let's say, Capacitor totem, let's say your Tremor totem. If you're getting chain, and again, you need to pay attention to the totems in the bottom. You can notice that there's a cooldown reduction happening to them. If I'm getting, again, you can see which Chain Heal is going to crit. It's a lot harder to notice with 2 people only. If you're getting a lot of characters and you have higher chance of crit and you're getting more stacks, you will notice that there's a lot more cooldown reduction on the totems. So it is kind of insane. I think it's actually a really nice bonus. I don't want to bang on too much about this, but generally speaking, this is going to have like insane value in PvP, because every totem is probably going to have some insane value. You want to have it as backup as quickly as possible. While on the other hand, there's a big downside to this tier set and the 4-set bonus in the general sense that in raid situations, let's say you use your Tremor totem once per fight because you need to use it during that specific period, and then you are going to use your Chain Heal and let's say it's going to crit. That cooldown reduction is going to go into your Tremor totem instead of something like Cloudburst totem, instead of something like Earthen Wall totem, maybe instead of something like Healing Tide totem. So you're generally being punished by using these niche totems, because I'm not sure how this cooldown reduction from the Chain Heal crits. Is there a priority system? I feel like there should be a priority system on which totems get the cooldown reduction first, because you are generally you're being punished for using Capacitor totem, for using even Mana Tide totem and things like that, depending on how much you need it. I do feel there is downsides and there's upside to this 4-set. I do think generally it is a really nice, interesting 4-set because it gives you a lot of cheesability. And the cheesability, and again, I'm using this word again, the cheesability comes from the fact how much Chain Heals can you use, because the more Chain Heals you use, the more cooldown reduction you get. It works with Vesper Totem. Like for example, maybe you're in Mythic Plus situation and you're using a Vesper Totem on a lot of packs, and then you're spamming Chain Heal. And then you're spamming Chain Heal to get 3 stacks of Vesper Totem, and you're trying to reduce the cooldown on your Vesper Totem. And all of a sudden, maybe there's going to be some weird gameplay in Mythic Plus where you're putting Vesper Totem down, you're spamming Chain Heal, and maybe the new seasonal affix in Mythic Plus is going to give you, again, mana. Because the biggest issue of spamming Chain Heal is mana. You cannot spam Chain Heal without running out of mana in Mythic Plus or even raid situations. So you need some sort of help in terms of maintaining that. For example, if you are spamming Chain Heal, you are pretty much going to have 100% uptime on Cloudburst Totem, because you're most likely will always have Cloudburst Totem or going to be using Cloudburst Totem on cooldown to some extent. Again, we're not gonna overcomplicate this, but if you're spamming Chain Heal, and again, it's really hard to showcase it with just 2 targets, but if you have a lot of members and just some of those Chain Heal bounces, you have to remember that every Chain Heal bounce, if it crits, it is going to contribute towards the cooldown reduction. So straight away you can see interaction with Cloudburst Totem, interaction with Vesper Totem, you can see interaction with, again, spamming Chain Heal. Again, no Earth Elemental interaction at this point, but you can see how powerful this 2-set and 4-set can be, and I'm really excited. All I kind of ask right now is, again, I'm not able to fully test how the cooldown reduction prioritizes totems, but I do feel there should be a priority system on which totems get the cooldown reduction, because like I mentioned at the start of the video, there is just weirdness. Like some totems get 6 seconds cooldown reduction based on your like 4 Chain Heal crits, and the other totem gets 2 seconds. How does that work exactly? Like, more clarification, but overall really excited. Now, the second part of the video is going to be concerning the Venthyr specific legendary buffs that happened in the last couple of weeks in terms of PTR, and the reason why I said at the start of the video is comparable to Mystery Monk Fallen Order build, because it basically has the same concept. More critical strike, the more cooldown reduction you get on your main ability, which in Fallen Order, a 3-minute cooldown becomes like a below 1 minute cooldown depending on how much crit you have during the Fallen Order windows. And it's similar to what's happening to Chain Harvest in terms of the latest Venthyr legendary buffs. Now, if you play Chain Harvest, if you played Venthyr, you know that up to 5 friendly targets healed by Chain Harvest are gonna get Riptide, and enemies are gonna get Flame Shock. Now, there's an additional text being added. Flame Shock critical strikes reduce the cooldown of Chain Harvest by 1 second. So, all of a sudden you'll notice that your Flame Shock crits are going to reduce Chain Harvest by a significant amount. You have to know that there is a target cap of 6 Flame Shocks. So you're shooting out 5 Flame Shocks here, and then you can maintain 1 more Flame Shock. What happens if you apply a Flame Shock when you have 6 already? One of them is going to drop off. So that's something to be aware of. There is a maximum cap of how many Flame Shocks you can have. And there is a lot of interaction in terms of Soul Binds and Conduits, because Venthyr has a lot of different Raid and Mythic Plus viable choices. So in Raid, Token of Appreciation is really, really strong. In Mythic Plus, Wasteland Propriety. The more uptime you have on Chain Harvest, the more versatility you're providing to your group, the more DPS your group does, the more keys you're going to time. So again, I'm not saying this is going to be the best way to go, I'm just pointing out some obvious choices that's available right now in live servers. These are very popular choices in live servers depending on your Covenant ability. So what is happening? I'm using Chain Harvest on this target dummy. This is going to be 5 Flame Shocks. I'm going to add another Flame Shock, and you can see the cooldown reduction on my Chain Harvest. Now, you'll notice that I have 6 Flame Shocks. If I add another Flame Shock, one of them is going to drop off. So you can see this one dropped off straight away. So as long as you keep 6 targets with Flame Shock, as long as you make sure they're not going to die, if they're going to be alive, if you're getting enough crit, you'll notice that your Chain Harvest cooldown reduction is going to be pretty significant. And now that's going to lead higher uptime of Wasteland Propriety and things like that, and you're going to be dealing more damage and more healing. This is something that I want to experiment, and leave a comment below if you want me to see or try this in Mythic Plus environment. Try and see how it compares with Vesper Totem, because I feel that's the main niche of this build right now in Mythic Plus, where you have a lot of targets. A lot of those targets are going to stay alive. A lot of the times you'll be able to refresh Flame Shock and things like that, and all of a sudden your Chain Harvest, a lot of cooldown reduction here. Again, I'm not saying this might not work in raids and things like that. It possibly can. But this is something that I'm mainly going to test Mythic Plus for. Leave a comment below. Now, in terms of everything, in terms of the 4 set, in terms of the 2 sets and things like that for Resto Shaman, I already talked about this before. But I have to say, I'm really happy about the new 4 set. I'm really happy about the new tier set for Resto Shamans. I think the previous iteration of Spirit Link felt really lackluster. Now all of a sudden you're getting free chain heals from a lot of your totems. A lot of your totems or 2 set bonus. Using all of your healing abilities gives you crit to chain heal. And using chain heal and getting it to crit equals cooldown reduction to pretty much all of the totems available. For my testing, the only Covenant that actually got cooldown reduction from the totem is Vesper Totem from Kyrian. So there is a direct advantage to playing Kyrian, and this is something that I tested out in raids. I want to have a look at Night Fae as well. Imagine playing Night Fae and reducing your healing tide totem even more. Could be nuts. But it all stems down from one fact. How much chain heal can you spam? Chain heal has a high mana cost. You might not hit enough people and things like that, but there is a lot of choosability available. Also, I almost forgot, you cannot test double legendaries on PTO right now, and that's probably not going to happen for a little while, but there's a lot of possibilities out there, and I am really looking forward to testing out some weird combinations. And again, a lot of Resto Shamans are talking about Elemental Equilibrium. I know it is Elemental Legendary, but it is something that could be used for Restoration Shamans, especially with something like Vesper Totem, buffing the damage of Vesper Totem, buffing the damage of any DPS ability that has a window. So it's something that I'm looking forward to test out in the near future. When the double legendaries are available, there is going to be some weird combinations that are going to emerge from Mythic Plus, especially Mythic Plus, because damage is such a big factor of healers right now. And again, we're going to test out some double legendaries in raids, but I felt like I needed to mention, this is something to watch at this given moment. I haven't tested it, but a lot of people are really excited about this. So let me know how you feel about this tier set bonus. I'm enjoying Resto Shaman. I am hyped for Resto Shaman, mainly because of the fact that this is one of those tier sets that's going to increase your DPS. Very few healer tier sets are increasing their DPS, like Holy Paladin one is looking pretty insane. But any tier set that increases DPS, and I know it sounds weird in a healer video, is going to be very good for anyone who's looking to do Mythic Plus content. Because in Mythic Plus content, healer DPS is almost as important as healing. This is the differentiating factor. People might ask, what DPS is increased? Vesper Totem. You can spam Chain Heal, reduce the cooldown on Vesper Totem. Vesper Totem provides a huge amount of DPS. So that's something to be definitely looked into. We're gonna test out Chain Harvest versus Vesper Totem in Mythic Plus. We'll see what the results are going to be. Leave a comment below on how you feel about the 4-set bonus, the 2-set bonus. How do you feel about the Venthyr possibly making a comeback again? This is a field crafting video. This is just to showcase what's going on with Resto Shaman. I'll see you in my next guide.